At 9:42 a.m., a senior banker answered his phone. By sunset, billions of dollars were gone. No malware, no breach, just a voice on the line. So how did a single phone call bring down a global bank? This wasn't a robbery in the traditional sense. There were no guns, no broken locks. Instead, the weapon was authority. The target was trust, and the battlefield was the human mind. The bank handled transactions for governments, corporations, and millions of ordinary people. It had survived wars, recessions, and financial crises. But what followed would expose a weakness no firewall could fix. This is the story of how one phone call collapsed a global bank. The institution had been around for more than a century. Its systems were audited regularly. Its employees were trained for emergencies. Its security budget ran into the hundreds of millions. Cyber attacks were expected. Phishing emails were anticipated. Social engineering, however, was underestimated. The call appeared to come from an internal extension. The voice was calm, confident, professional. The caller claimed to be from headquarters. There was an emergency, a confidential transfer tied to a regulatory deadline, a matter that could not be delayed. And the caller knew details, names, job titles, internal procedures, enough to sound real. The attacker didn't rush. They didn't threaten. They created pressure without panic. They cited compliance rules, mentioned a pending audit, and warned that delays could trigger serious legal consequences. The banker hesitated, but authority has gravity, and this voice carried it. The request itself was simple: authorize a temporary transfer to a holding account. The amount was enormous, but not unprecedented. Within minutes, the transaction was approved, then another, then another. Each transfer was justified as part of the same operation. Each one sounded routine. Each one followed protocol. 30 minutes later, the bank attempted to confirm the request. That's when everything unraveled. The internal number didn't exist. The department named by the caller wasn't real. By the time alarms were raised, the money had already moved across borders, through intermediary banks, into accounts designed to disappear. No system had been hacked. No password was stolen. Every step followed procedure because the attacker didn't break the system. They became the system. Security models assumed the threat would come from outside, but this attack came wearing a badge of trust. By the end of the day, the loss was undeniable. Billions were missing. Trading was halted. Shares began to fall, and regulators started asking questions the bank couldn't answer. Investigators traced the funds to shell companies, then to offshore accounts, then nothing. The caller was never conclusively identified. No arrests, no extraditions, only a voice that vanished the moment it succeeded. The bank survived, but barely. Executives resigned. Procedures were rewritten. Phone-based authorizations were suspended worldwide. The cost wasn't just financial, it was reputational and irreversible. We tend to imagine the biggest threats are the most complex, lines of code, shadowy hackers. But sometimes, all it takes is a convincing voice in the right moment. Because in the end, the most vulnerable system in the world is still the human one, and it only takes one phone call to prove it.